3 sinister and spine-chilling true horror tales uncovered on a rain-drenched night. Claire sprinted home, drenched, heart pounding, waking from the living nightmare that a 12-hour shift had been. Rain lashed against the pavement, reflecting the horrors that lay hidden in every shadow of her seemingly perfect suburban neighborhood. Was it a storm storming through or something much darker? As thunder clapped overhead with unsettling ferocity, she clutched her phone tighter, biting her lip as Mrs. Matthews' frantic voice murmured over the line, "Claire, there's something strange at your house. You need to come now." Every instinct screamed at her to run straight back to them, her 2 children, her light in a dark world, but dread twisted her stomach into knots. Fears clawed at her mind, reminding her of long-buried whispers about the estranged neighbor, Julian. It had been years since she'd heard his name, and yet the shivers that crept down her spine said he wasn't as far from her life as she thought. As the house came into view through the relentless rain, an eerie silence enveloped her. The baby monitor flickered unsettlingly, casting ghostly shadows across the living room, its static crackled ominously. Then she heard it, the unmistakable sound of a garbled lullaby, twisted and obscured, creeping from that device. Claire froze, her breath hitching. This wasn't a choir of angels, it was a sinister song, morphing into a dark chant that crawled into her skull, wrapping itself around her sanity. "What the hell?" Claire whispered, the darkness seeping into her bones. She sprinted to the front door, heart like a jackhammer, remembering the uneasiness that had shadowed the neighborhood since Julian had retreated from them. That man's mutterings had always clung to the corners of community gossip. Whispers about what lay behind his front door, the secrets buried beneath the tidy facade of familiar homes. "Police!" She gasped into the phone, her voice flimsy against the backdrop of rain and thunder. "You need to come. Something's wrong." I'm sure everything's fine," the officer responded, voice flat in the cold of her brewing terror. "It's probably just the wind or a raccoon." The nonchalance was a slap to her growing dread. The pressure of responsibility crushed her under its weight. Yet, the moment she entered her home, heavy silence descended, the kind that begged to be broken. Then came the scratching. Each sound, louder and closer, wrapped around her like barbed wire. Claire wound her way through the dark, nearly tripping over a toy, breathless and trembling. The unnerving thumping seemed to echo up the stairs, a low rhythmic beat like a war drum, calling her closer. She steeled herself, heart racing as she approached her children's bedroom. With each step, the eerie sounds rose to a chaotic crescendo, giggling whispers mixed with the morbid bass of the thunder. A sickening feeling twisted in her gut. She could almost feel another presence lurking beyond her fragile illusion of safety. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Claire steadied herself before the door. The thumping flared into a frenzy, a cacophony of malicious glee awakening every primal instinct inside her. She drew a deep breath, hand trembling as she reached out toward the knob. Just as she turned it, a shadow flickered outside the window, too familiar, too threatening. Claire stood frozen in horror, battling the truth behind her fears. What had she unleashed from the depths of ordinary life? Secrets long hidden are rising, and she couldn't ignore the chilling reality. She was no longer the protector. Someone was watching, waiting to steal everything she loved. Claire's heart thundered in her chest, a primal drumbeat pulsing through her veins. She fought the urge to bolt, to escape the house that felt more like a trap than a home. The lullaby twisted and warped, now resembling mocking laughter that pricked at her sanity. She pressed her ear against the door, listening. The giggles, it wasn't just a hallucination. They were real, sinister echoes mingling with the rain outside, increasing her dread with every passing second. With a surge of resolve that shot through her like lightning, Claire twisted the doorknob and flung the door open. The room was dim, shadows swirling like spirits in the corners. The crib stood empty, a haunting absence that sent a fresh wave of terror crashing through her. Where were her children? Lucy. Ben. The names burst from her lips, high-pitched and frantic, filling the silence with desperation. No answer came. Just the crackling lullaby that now morphed into a chilling duet of whispers, whispering something she couldn't quite catch, but the tone was unmistakably dark. She stepped inside, squinting into the gloom. The weathered nursery decor, once comforting, now felt like the shards of a broken promise. The window was wide open, rain splattering across the floor like tears from the sky, as if the storm itself wept for her loss. She took a hesitant step forward, then another, until her foot caught on something soft and yielding. She looked down. It was a black cloth, an old cloak that hung heavy with the scent of mold. Confusion twisted into horror when she noticed the faint outline of a small figure huddled in the corner. Claire. A soft voice called, filled with an otherworldly echo that chilled her to the marrow. She felt paralyzed, dread pinching her throat. "Honey, is that you?" She managed to say, fear making her words tremble, and then, right before her eyes, moved the childhood rocking chair as if pushed by unseen hands. The creaking filled the room, a noise so unsettling it broke her resolve. She took a step back, eyes wide. In the moonlight spilling through the window, she caught a fleeting glimpse of shadows darting under the bed. It looked like fingers too many to count scraping against the wood. Suddenly, the whispers intensified, cascading over her like an avalanche. "Come play with us. Get away from my kids." Claire shouted, realizing this wasn't just a haunt. This was a call, an invitation, sinister and calculating. Panic spread like wildfire through her mind. She darted to the door, but her flight was halted by a sharp gasp from the corner, where the shadows seemed to congeal into something darker, something alive. "Mommy." It was Lucy's voice, but it was stretched and distorted, deeper, layered with the obscured intent of something that felt older than time. Claire could feel the walls closing in, reality warping. Her heart pounded louder, drowning the whispers. She raced toward the shadows, desperate to find her children, only to be met with the crimson glow of Julian's eyes peering from the abyss. "Stay away from them!" She screamed, but her voice was lost in a vortex of terror spinning around her, heavy and thick, and in the distance, beyond the walls, the storm howled angrily, seething like a beast at the door. The shadows lunged forward, and all sense of safety evaporated. Just as darkness reached for her, Claire felt something cold grasp her wrist tightly, pulling her towards the unknown. With one sharp gasp of breath, Claire disappeared into the pitch-black void, swallowing her whole as an ominous echo lingered. "You're too late." What awaited her in the depths of that darkness? And could she save her children before the shadows consumed them all? Darkness enveloped her, thick and suffocating, as if the very essence of fear had manifested into a tangible weight. Claire's skin prickled with cold dread, an ice that seeped into her bones. She wasn't just lost in a void, she was submerged in a haunting silence that wrapped around her like a shroud. She fought to breathe, to anchor herself in some sliver of reality. Eyes straining against the dark, Claire felt her heart hurl itself into her throat as whispers began to reach her once more. They swirled around, ambiguous yet clear in their malicious intent, like wolves circling their prey. No longer childish, they sounded deep and ancient, as if the house itself breathed life into them. "Mommy. Come play." The voice was an uncanny mirror of Lucy's, twisted and taunting. Claire choked back a scream. She pressed her hands against the cold ground beneath her, searching for some way out of this nightmare. But instead, she felt the fibers of a carpet, worn and ancient, cutting into her palms. The memories of the nursery flooded her, the gentle laughter of her children, bedtime stories, warmth. All warped now into a grotesque farce. "Lucy. Ben." She called, her voice trembling. The echoes bounced back at her, a mocking refrain. Panic surged inside her as she staggered forward into the dark, trying to find some solid ground, some escape that didn't seem to exist. Suddenly, she stumbled into a wall, hard and unyielding. The familiar outline came into focus her children's room, but it was different. The moonlight filtering through was sickly, casting elongated, twisted shapes that whispered secrets. The shadows from before began to deepen, coiling like serpents upon the floor. Claire felt a pulse beneath her feet, a rhythmic thumping that resonated through the room, shaking her core. She pressed her back against the wall, trying to steel herself. "Mommy, we're waiting," she turned sharply, but all she saw was darkness. The shadows seemed to crackle with energy, alive with malevolence. Her instincts screamed for her to flee, but where could she run? Then, a flicker of movement caught her eye, small, fleeting. A figure darting toward her, and Claire's breath hitched. Was it Lucy? Ben? No. It was a shadow, stretching, twisting, transforming into a semblance of a child, but one filled with a sinister hunger. "Play with us forever." In horror, Claire recognized the cloak she had been gripping moments ago. It was now wrapped around this shadow child, its face a distorted mimicry of her daughter, eyes like black holes, pulling at her very soul. "No. Get away." She screamed, but her voice felt feeble, drowned in fear. Vague memories of childhood horrors flooded her mind, bedtime stories gone wrong, monsters lurking under the bed. And now, they were here, materialized from nightmares, hungry and relentless. "Mommy, the game has begun," it taunted, the voice a cacophony of her children's laughter twisted with the shadow's intent. Claire's body felt heavy, gripped by an unseen force that held her in place. In that moment of icy realization, she understood the game was never meant to be played alone. The stakes had shifted, and Claire was just a player in a sick riddle where the price was her children's very lives. With determination, she shouted, "I will save you." But the shadows laughed, that chilling sound echoing in the void. Then, a sudden crash rang out, breaking the puppeteer's control, and Claire felt an urge to move, to break free from the grip of darkness. But as she lunged forward, shadows surged toward her, hungry and insatiable. The storm raged on outside, but within her heart, it was nothing compared to the tempest that awaited just ahead. If the darkness had its way, she would lose herself completely. Would Claire awaken from this hell, or succumb to the never-ending hunt? As she plunged deeper into the abyss, the screams of her children echoed, shaking her resolve. Claire had to find the light before she became one with the shadows. Who, or what, was waiting to claim her? And would the truth be more terrifying than the deception she faced? The shadows surged, hungry and relentless, as Claire prepared to break free. But the moment her foot touched the ground, a blinding flash of pain shot through her leg, anchoring her back. A jagged shard of glass, glinting with malice, pierced her flesh and rooted her to the floor. She inhaled sharply, and the scent of iron mixed with damp earth flooded her senses. "Mommy," the words fluttered through the darkness like fallen leaves, soft yet terrifying, taunting. The voice was no longer a child's but a hollow echo, reverberating with the weight of her whispered fears. Claire looked down, shocked to see the shadow child slithering toward her, etching patterns on the floor with its elongated fingers. "Play with us," it crooned, a smile twisting across its dark face, revealing teeth sharp and glinting. Claire's heart raced. Any shred of hope was overshadowed by an intense, blinding fear. "Lucy! Ben!" She screamed again, voice raw with desperation. "I'm here. I'm coming for you." Her words hung in the air, a stark contrast to the ominous silence that answered her. The grip of despair tightened around her throat. What kind of twisted nightmare was this? She could almost feel the shadows whispering her secrets back at her, mocking her weakness. The shadow child paused, tilting its head like a curious bird. Its oversized eyes glimmered in the darkness, hungry for fear. "Mommy, if you take my hand, you can be with them forever." No more pain. Claire shook her head, her pulse quickening, nearly matching the rhythmic thrum underfoot. Light? Was there a source of light somewhere in this sable expanse? The stakes were too high to consider the offer. "Enough!" she yelled, ripping her gaze away from the creature. She stumbled backward, still pressed against the wall as an icy wind seemed to slither around her. She forced herself to recall the laughter of her real children, their warmth, their smiles, everything that was pure and innocent. "You're not my children. You're just shadows." As if provoked, a roar of wind whipped through the room, and the shadows lunged, a swarm of darkness reaching for her. Claire swung her arm, barely dodging the grasping claws that seemed to pulse with anger. She could feel the cold, clammy air brush past her face, creeping into her mind, dragging her thoughts down into a seeping abyss. "Mommy, why won't you play?" The shadows merged before her, distorting and splitting into countless figures mimicking her children. Each distortion held the same twisted face, eyes wide and glimmering with a monstrous delight. "I will not play." Claire's voice cracked, but she stood her ground. The silhouette staggered, letting out chattering laughter, a sound that scraped her insides painfully. They responded one by one, ghostly chorus reverberating around her. "Stay with us forever." With a surge of adrenaline, Claire turned, desperate to break through, to escape this twisted labyrinth. She charged forward, thrashing her arms to push apart the shadowy forms, feeling them splash around her like molten tar. Each touch felt like ice trickling down her spine, slippery and biting. That eye, in the corner of her eye, she glimpsed a flicker, glimmering like hope, nestled deep within the den of shadows. It pulsed faintly, inviting yet haunting. Was it a way out, or another cruel trick? Heart racing, Claire lurched toward it. "Stop her!" A voice growled from the depths, a sound so primal it clawed at her very essence. Her pulse hammered, every instinct screamed at her to flee, to fall back, yet curiosity tethered her to the glowing light. What would she find? More shadows? Or was the truth buried inside, waiting to be uncovered? As she reached for the light, chaos erupted. The shadows spiraled, coiling around her, threatening to devour her whole. Would she snatch away the veil of darkness, or become forever ensnared in their grasp? The echoes of a heartbeat pulsed louder, tearing through her resolve. What awaited Claire in that blinding spark? The answer lingered in the air, thicker than the darkness itself. Would she be the key to release her children, or the unwitting pawn in a game much more sinister? The light flickered, pulsing like a distant star, promising salvation or perhaps more shadows. Claire reached for it, fingers stretching toward its brilliant glow. It was like an open door in a haunted house, inviting her in with whispers that danced across her mind. But those whispers were not sweet. They were filled with urgency, with impending doom. "Mommy, come back!" They echoed, more insistent now, weaving through the darkness, wrapping around her like chains. Claire's heart hammered as she waded through the suffocating shadows, battling the darkness itself. Each step sent a jolt of fear coursing through her veins. "Get away from me!" she bellowed, battling against the grips that clawed at her arms. For every inch she moved, the shadows thickened, pulling at her, hungry and relentless. It was like trying to escape quicksand. The more she fought, the deeper she sank. The shadow child materialized before her again, its eyes wide and gleaming, a void of hunger. "Mommy, don't you want to play? We just want you to be with us." It took another step, its fingers curling like tendrils, creeping closer. "I'm not afraid of you," Claire shouted, but the truth clawed at her. She was terrified. Every fiber of her being screamed as they closed in. The memories of her children flickered in her mind, ephemeral images of laughter and warmth battling the chilling terror surrounding her now. Forever, it hissed, and a howling wind swept through the room, pressing down like a weight. Shadows morphed and twisted, forming faces, her children's faces mimicking their smiles yet warped into grotesque parodies of joy. "Join us, Mommy." Those words bit deeper than any glass shard. Alive yet twisted, they called to her, pulling her toward the darkness. Claire's breath quickened as doubt crept in, gnawing at her resolve. Were they really gone? Was this all that remained? No. She roared, flipping over the weight of despair. She sprinted toward the flickering light again, pushing through the clamoring grotesques, feeling them tear at her skin, their icy touch leaving marks where they clawed. The glow was closer now, shining brighter, and she shoved herself forward, fighting every instinct that told her to cower. What was waiting for her beyond the light? For every distance she crossed, the shadows screamed louder, claws reaching for her heels, desperation turning to fury. A jagged edge of light split the darkness, and Claire lunged toward it. She reached out, fingers trembling, and as they grazed the surface of the light, a surge of warmth flooded her. And then the whispers stopped, silence enveloped her as she felt herself collide with something soft, something that drew her back from the brink. Claire staggered, breathing hard, mind racing. Yet, just as quickly, the warmth turned cold. An overwhelming darkness wrapped around her again, swallowing the light, twisting it like a mockery, blurring reality. "Mommy," it was a whimpering plea. "Help us no. I want tea." She screamed, eyes darting back into the void. Not again. Not now. But with each shout, her voice echoed back distorted, and everything felt off. The abyss answered, a swirling mass of shadows under the brightness she thought she'd grabbed. It drew her in, sucking her down as she realized she was still trapped, still ensnared in this nightmare. Claire struggled, hands tearing at the edges of reality, but it was no use. The faces returned, twisted in wretched horror. "Play with us, Mommy," and as those shadows surged forward, something clicked in her mind, like an awakening. There was a truth beneath the fear, hidden in the cracks of her shattered soul. Could it be possible? The pulse of the light echoed still, distant yet persistent. "No more games," she hissed. "Tell me the truth." The darkness quivered, and for a fleeting moment, Claire felt a shift, an opening in the void. But before she could grasp it, the shadows recoiled, their laughter resonating like thunder around her. What was the truth she sought? What secrets lay buried in the heart of this darkness? As the shadows leaped forward once more, the pulse quickened, a promise and a curse intertwined. Claire had to decide: embrace the darkness or seek the light. But could she break the cycle before it consumed her completely? What would happen when she finally uncovered the terrible truth hidden beneath the layers of shadow? Claire's heart raced, trapped in the vortex of darkness where reality and nightmare met. She grasped for threads of coherence, but they slipped away like sand through her fingers. The shadows surged, hungry and wild, their laughter a haunting melody that reverberated in her mind. Panic surged anew as the fragmented memories of her children clawed at her soul, distorted faces emerging once again, twisting her sense of reason. "Mommy, come play," they whimpered in unison, their voices merging into a cacophony that echoed her deepest fears. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing the images away, but they were etched into her memory, too vivid to ignore. They felt so close, yet so irrevocably lost. The flickering light pulsed again, insistent, pulsing like a heartbeat, and Claire knew she had to choose. Heart pounding, she bit her lip hard enough to taste blood, steadied her breath, and opened her eyes. The darkness pressed forward, but there was a thin thread of light that beckoned, dancing just beyond the swirling chaos. "Help us, Mommy. We're scared." She shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No. You're gone. I can't play." The shadows twitched, thrumming with that surreal energy, and with it, Claire felt a flicker of hope. If she could just break free from this despair, she could find them. With a primal scream, she lunged toward the light, determination taking over as the shadows lunged back, hissing in fury. The cold tendrils scraped against her arms, but she pushed aside the pain, focusing only on the warmth emanating from the glow. The distance closed, pulses shifting with every desperate step. Just one touch more. "Mommy," the shadow child reappeared, this time its eyes wide, pleading but no longer threatening. "We need you, please." The flickering light surged, mingling with a pull of warmth that enveloped her, but it felt hollow. She could almost feel her children through the barrier the darkness had erected. The need to bridge that gap swelled in her chest, an ache she couldn't ignore. "Tell me the truth," she shouted again, voice echoing through the murky haze. "What do you want from me?" The shadows twisted, forming a vortex, and from within, the pained wail of a child pierced through. Claire's heart sank. It was so familiar. A memory, twisted yet true. Her son's voice, a terrible echo of grief. The realization struck her like a physical blow, his last moments were trapped here too. "Can I save you?" Claire whispered, heartbreaking under the weight of hope. "Forever," the shadows hissed, their voices cutting through her resolve. "Join us, Mommy." "No." She gripped the light's essence tightly, its warmth flowing through her like a lifeline. But the shadows shifted, morphing, towering over her. The grotesque features of her children began to twist again, drawing nearer, their eyes turning hollow. "Mommy, we're scared." Claire felt the creeping doubt. Was her resolve slipping? How much longer could she resist? "Stop!" she screamed, clenching her fists against the pain. "I want to let you take me." Then, a thought sparked. What if the truth she sought was a key? The pulse of light grew in intensity, battling against the consuming darkness, alive with possibility. If she could uncover the truth hidden in this chaos, would it weaken their hold? With renewed strength, she focused inward, delving deeper, searching for the secret buried beneath layers of fear. Her breath came in ragged gasps, but she pushed through, determined to wrestle the truth from the heart of the shadows. The light pulsed brighter, responding to her will, illuminating a pathway straight into the depths of dread, but before she could grasp it, the shadows howled, reverberating like a thunderstorm. They seized her, drawing her back toward the void. "You don't belong in the light." Their chorus twisted around her, vibrant yet chilling, just as despair clutched at her insides. Claire forced her eyes open, leaving behind the echoes of laughter that had turned sinister. Would she find the truth she needed, or was she destined to be lost forever? And in that instant, reality shifted again as a voice low and guttural whispered from the dark depths, "You'll wish you'd stayed." The shadows recoiled, hissing like serpents as Claire's pulse quickened. She felt the air turn electric, crackling with unseen danger. The whispers grew louder, a crowd of voices overlapping, clamoring for her attention. "Mommy," they were no longer just children but lost souls, their cries blending with the shadows, pressing closer as if they lurked just beyond her sense of perception. "Stop it." Claire stumbled backward, tears blurring her vision. The light flickered in response, fighting against the overwhelming darkness, casting fleeting glimpses of distorted realities. Images rushed past her children laughing in the sunlight, the way they used to run towards her with open arms, radiant smiles that contrasted sharply with twisted shadows gripping at her ankles. "Come back to us." The blend of their voices twisted like a knife, the plea echoing deep inside her chest. "No." She shook her head again, fighting to regain control. "You're not real. You are not my children." Their laughter morphed into maniacal echoes. Claire could feel the shadows tightening around her, thick and suffocating. It was a grotesque game, and the rules weren't in her favor. She felt a chill creep up her spine, the cold tendrils of darkness weaving through her hair, stilling her breath. Suddenly, she remembered the old tales of light and darkness. What if the truth wasn't just a weapon against the shadows but a reflection of her own mistakes? Her heart thumped hard in her chest, a booming clock counting down seconds until despair would swallow her whole. "Find the truth, Claire," she whispered to herself, frantically searching the depths of her mind. "What happened? What did you do?" The shadows stirred, sensing her introspection, shifting in a dance of menace. She closed her eyes, trying to silence the chaos around her. Memories flooded back, each sharper than the last, muffled laughter giving way to heart-wrenching screams, the frantic throbbing of her heart as the world around her unraveled. "Mommy," a spectral voice rang clear, cutting through the turmoil. It was her son, his piercing cry echoing like a gunshot in her head. "Help me." With that single plea, the shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned. The light surged again, its warmth penetrating the cloying darkness. Claire took a step forward, reaching with trembling hands, desperate to touch the warmth, to feel the safety she craved. Just as she was about to enter the swirling light, doubt clawed at her. What if this was another trick? What if the light held her fate as tightly as the shadows held her children? The walls of her resolve began to crack under the suffocating weight of uncertainty. "Mommy, please." The sound of her children's voices mixed with the howling shadows, a chorus of despair that left her gasping. Summoning all her will, Claire pushed through, plastering her determination against the rising tide of fear. "I want to let you take me. I will find the truth," she screamed, charging into the light. But instead of a safe embrace, the light exploded into blinding shards, and the shadows screeched in unison, their cries like nails on a chalkboard. Pain lanced through her as the light engulfed her, and everything went white. As the light faded, Claire found herself back in her home, the room still and eerily quiet. But something was wrong. The pictures on the walls were altered. They didn't show her children at all, but unfamiliar faces, twisted with malice, their eyes hollow like the void she had just escaped. "Why did you come back?" a voice sneered from somewhere off in the darkness. Crawling through the silence, her chest tightened with fear, knowing she had stepped into something far more sinister. The shadows weren't done with her yet. "What do you want?" she shouted, scanning the room for the source. "Join us forever." The shadowy shape slithered from the corner, and Claire found herself frozen, gripped by a chilling realization. Tonight, she hadn't just returned home. She had returned to a nightmare, and as the walls began to close in, Claire understood the terrible truth: escaping the darkness had only led her deeper into its embrace. What would she do next? Would the real horror begin now? The shadows around her pulsed and writhed as if alive, hungry for Claire's fear, ready to consume her. Each flicker of the dim light made the faces in the photographs crawl further into her mind. Hollow eyes, twisted smiles, specters of guilt clawing at her sanity. "Join us, forever," the voice hissed again, low and velvety, waking an icy dread deep in her gut. It seeped through her veins, freezing her thoughts, electrifying her senses as she felt the air suffocating around her. "Get away from me!" she screamed, her voice cracking like shattered glass. Panic surged. She swept her gaze through the room, desperate to find an escape route. Every corner felt alive as shadows twisted into grotesque figures, their whispers surrounding her, taunting, a maddening chorus. Then she spotted the door, dark and ominous, but it glimmered with a hint of hope. Claire's heart raced, pounding in her chest louder than the looming shadows. She lunged toward it, hands outstretched, fingers trembling. The shadows hissed defiantly, a gust of icy wind forcing her backward. "Leave your children behind," they chanted in unison. "Join the lost." "No!" Claire shouted, every fiber of her being screaming against their words. She could feel them tugging her, an invisible force wrapping around her wrist like a vice, trying to anchor her in place. "You're not real. I want to let you take me." With a fierce cry, she pulled away, the pain only momentarily stunning her resolve. Adrenaline surged, feeding her desperation as she darted to the door again. She slammed her shoulder against it. Nothing happened. The door held tight, as if mocking her attempts to flee. Shadows swirled, mocking laughter echoing softly like a background tune to her despair. Desolation swelled within her. "Please. Let me go." "Forever means forever," the voice twisted, the room darkening. Claire felt the walls breathing, pressing inward, their malice all too palpable. Suddenly, a sharp crack sounded from the corner, and the shadows recoiled, giving her a momentary reprieve. A window. Claire turned, scrambling toward the source of light. Her heart thumped wildly, hope fluttering like a fragile moth in her chest. It stood, partially ajar, the fresh rain cascading down its glass, creating a veil of shimmering droplets, proof of a world beyond. She could almost taste freedom. As she reached the window, wind gusted, swirling in from the outside. Rain-slicked streetlights cast an eerie glow, illuminating a familiar figure standing beneath, cloaked in darkness. "Mommy," her breath caught as she squinted into the night. It was her son, standing unshaken, perfectly still. A vision of innocence among the shadows. "Help me, help us!" frantic, Claire clawed at the window. Nothing. It wouldn't give. Her heart raced. "No. I need to save you." She pressed her forehead against the glass. "Help you? The shadows jeered, enveloping her. Who will help you? Suddenly, they surged forward, chilling fingers wrapping around her throat, pulling her back from the window. She fought against their hold, but the walls closed in, distorting her vision. As her son's silhouette began to blur, Claire screamed, sending shards of panic across the blackness. You're not lost. You're here, you're real. With one final gasp, she surged forward, gathering every ounce of strength. She slammed her hand against the window, and this time it shattered, a cascade of glass raining down around her like deadly confetti. I'm coming to save you. But even as she lunged, darkness wrapped around her, cold and unyielding, pulling her away from the light, from hope. The shadows laughed, their cries swirling, echoing in a cacophony of despair as Claire felt herself starting to dissolve into the void that in moments, she'd be lost, engulfed in eternal night, becoming just another shadow in their wicked game. She gasped in realization as the darkness threatened to consume her whole. What would happen if she truly joined them? Would she ever see her son again? And as she grappled with those chilling thoughts, her eyes widened in horror. The familiar faces surrounded her. Twisted now, mocking, as they closed in, ready to reel her into the darkness. Would she ever escape this nightmare, or was she doomed to dwell with the shadows forever? Claire's scream was swallowed by the darkness, her body drawn further into the inky void as the shadows converged around her. Each wretched face once familiar now jeered, grotesque in their malevolence. She fought against their invasive whispers, but their words were cold steel, slicing through her resolve. Join us, we are your family now. No. Her voice cracked, laced with defiance. But with every shriek of agony, another tendril of darkness coiled around her. She felt it invade her thoughts, erasing her memories, draining her essence. She could almost feel herself fraying at the edges, dissolving in despair. Your son waits for you, they taunted. Abandon him, Claire. Free yourself. Images of her son, innocent and hopeful, flashed before her. Desperation surged. I want to leave him. I want to. Gathering what strength she had left, she pushed against the shadows, struggling to reclaim her form. The whispers became a furious storm, a maelstrom of rage and grief. The faces twisted, a cacophony of lamentation that clawed at her sanity. You loved them. But who loves you? Suddenly, she felt warmth, a flicker of light in the suffocating darkness. It was fleeting, but it ignited hope. She focused on it, heart pounding, desperately wishing for that light to become a path. If I can just reach, but a surge of cold seized her, locking her body in place. The shadows hissed. You can't escape. You'll never escape. Your reality is here, forever, in our embrace. She let out a roar, shattering their hold momentarily. With a burst of adrenaline, she surged forward, propelled by a mother's love, towards the flickering warmth. The darkness pulled back, but their grip would not yield easily. Let go of me. Claire shouted. She felt ripples of hatred brush past her skin, like icy fingers trailing over her spirit. I'm not yours. You don't own me. The warmth intensified, blinding her momentarily. She pushed through the haze, her surroundings morphing. The walls of the room twisted, bending, and warping as darkness flickered with each heartbeat. And then, she saw at the edge of the shadow world. Through sheer will, she forced herself onward. Claire was almost free when a voice, deeper and more commanding than the others, boomed through the chaos. You think you can leave? You belong with us, remember? Images flooded her mind, her failures, moments of dread when she felt abandoned. A memory of her son's laughter twisted into a cry of despair. The shadows clung tighter, a vice tightening around her heart. Join the lost, they crooned, now soothing, promising solace in her suffering. No. Claire screamed, grasping the flicker of warmth fiercely. I choose to fight. With a final push, she thrust herself into the light, the blinding brilliance swallowing her whole. Then darkness closed in again, seeping into every crack, pulling away any semblance of that warmth. Claire was left teetering on the precipice. Just when she thought she would devour the void, the light surged in one last desperate blast, forcing a fracture through the shadows. She launched herself forward, but the darkness wrapped around her like chains, dragging her back into the shadows. "Say goodbye," they cried, but all around her faces were morphing, becoming twisted versions of her loved ones. "No." A last gasp tore from her throat, and she felt herself convulse as the world slipped again, shifting like sand beneath her feet. She remembered her son's face, the way he smiled, and held on to that image like a lifeline. Suddenly, she was falling, spiraling into nothingness, the whispering shadows clawing at her soul. Somewhere far below, a hollow voice echoed, "Would you betray him for your own salvation?" In that moment, she realized her choice was not merely about her own escape. It was about everything she loved. As the abyss opened up beneath her, Claire braced for impact. Would she crash back into the shadows, or could she pull them both into the light? What if she didn't just need to escape? What if she needed to save them all? The darkness swirled around Claire, each tendril coiling tighter, threatening to crush her resolve. But now, amidst the chaos, a flicker of newfound strength ignited within her. She could feel the weight of her children's love pressing against her heart, that warmth a bright beacon cutting through the relentless night. As shadows clawed at her, she thought of Lucy and Ben, of the laughter and love that used to fill their home. "Mommy! Help us!" The cry rang hollow yet sharp, an arrow piercing through the dread closing in on her. They were still out there, lost in the shadows, waiting for her fight. In those agonizing moments, Claire focused on the flickering light. If she could reach it, maybe she could pull them back. Maybe they could escape together. She felt every fiber of her being want to give in, to surrender to the shadows, to their promises of peace without pain. But the thought of her children drowning in darkness pushed her forward, compounding her rage and strength. "No!" Claire roared, fighting against the icy grip that held her down. She could sense the darkness recoiling, momentarily stunned by her defiance. "You're not my family. You're just the shadows of my fears." With each shout, she felt more herself, the truth manifesting into a palpable force as she plunged toward the light that pulsed vigorously beyond her reach. "Join the lost, Claire," they hissed, trying to latch onto her doubts, but she pushed against them, willing the love she felt to course through her. The air thickened with the tension of her internal battle as she surged forward, ready to break through the bright radiance that promised relief from this hell. The warmth spread through her body, not as a sweet comfort but as a burning torrent that ignited every painful memory wrapped in doubt. Images of sweet bedtime stories, of cozy afternoons dancing in the sun, punctured her heart, and she pressed on, barreling through shards of pain to grasp what she needed most. "I'll save my family!" Claire yelled as she lunged into the light, arms extended with a fierce determination that was born from pure, unyielding love. Thwack! She collided with something soft, something warm. The taste of life flooded her senses, her children, their faces beaming with the light of hope. "Mommy!" They flung their arms around her, the fear melting away as she embraced them with all her might. "I've got you, I won't let go." The shadows roared in fury, their malice amplifying, twisting into a vengeful storm that surrounded them. But Claire felt an unwavering pulse of warmth growing stronger. Her love was seizing control. The light seemed to morph, radiating brightly in defiance of the darkness threatening to claim them. "Let us go home!" she screamed, her voice a battle cry against the shadows that writhed in anger. Lucy and Ben nodded, their eyes no longer void as they clung tightly to her amidst the swirling chaos. Together, they charged toward the soft light, hearts beating as one. As they collided, every shadow recoiled, released from their grasping hold. "No!" they shrieked, their cries mingling with shrill winds, dimming as the enveloping light consumed all. The storm wrenched around them and Claire felt the air rushing past, brighter than the sun. The cloying shadows began to dissipate, retreating into their dark corners, unable to withstand the power of her love. Just before she was completely enveloped by the warmth, she felt the remnants of the darkness clinging, but she shoved it aside. The weight released her. Crack! The final blow reverberated as they broke through the veil of darkness. Suddenly, Claire opened her eyes and she was back home, drenched in moonlight. The baby monitor was silent, the uneasy weight of fear lifted. She blinked, heart racing, and turned slowly to find her children asleep soundly, unaware of the nightmare they had just escaped together. Tears streamed down her face, relief and joy intertwining in a powerful embrace. They were safe, and she would not let anything take that away again. Claire gathered them close, their innocent breathing anchoring her sanity. "I'll protect you always," she whispered into the stillness of the room. Outside, the thunder faded, washing the ground clean. The rain sputtered out into a gentle drizzle, washing away remnants of the horror that prowled nearby. And for the first time, Claire felt the weight of the world lift, knowing she had conquered not just the shadows outside, but the fears lurking inside her heart. Their laughter drifted softly in the cool night air, a gentle reminder that love, pure and fierce, drove back the darkness. And as she settled on the bed, keeping her children close, a newfound determination bloomed within her. If ever there was a question of shadows lurking again, she would be a light so fierce that even the darkest of horrors would tremble in fear. This was their home, a sanctuary guarded by a mother's love. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss more exclusive stories that will take you to the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help others find these chilling tales. I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Claire's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is what keeps these stories alive.